Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, evening, afternoon, night, whatever time it is that you're watching this video. Today, I'm talking with Shelton Davis. We talked about helping people build empathy muscles, having a grandfather that was a maker, and comparing future and past. I'm Yves Hanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello everyone, and hello with me. I have Shelton. Is that how I should pronounce your name?
You got it. Shelton is my name.
Okay, and for the people that and somehow I just talked about having a problem with my mouse. Here it is. What I want to show is where I'm living and where you
Okay.
are. So I'm
Yes.
living in Belgium, and that is Ghent. And let's ask Google where you are. So we're moving from Europe
Woo!
immediately to whoops, and we're in, and then I'm have a hard time. Chattahoochee Chattahoochee Hills. Is that how I
You,
pronounce
you
it?
you almost got it. Chattahoochee Hills.
Chattahoochee Hills. Actually, that's
Yeah.
that's pretty easy once you know how to do that.
Yeah. It's a decently common name out here.
Wow.
If I remember correctly, it's a Native American, Indigenous American tribe.
And meanwhile, while we keep talking, let's bring you on screen. And on my side here in Belgium, it's 20 minutes after 8 in the evening. What's the time on your side?
Oh, that's a great question. It is 2:19 in the afternoon.
290. Well, yeah, it was 19 as well, but I was liking the thing. But that it
You
shows us a
rounded
little.
up.
Yeah, I rounded up. It's what do I want to say? So we're miles away, we're kilometers away, we're time zones away. But
Mhm.
thanks to the glory, nice things of the internet, we do have the opportunity to talk to each other. And I'm really glad that you're here. But for the few people that don't know, could you tell us some more? Who is Shelton?
Yeah, who is Shelton? Let me first say a thank you to you and to Andrea Goulet who introduced us. I think that it's wonderful to see communities like this spread and grow. So thank you for having me. And I'm so fascinated to get to meet you as well. Who am I? So that's always a difficult question to answer. It really depends on the context. But since maybe y'all don't know who I am, I'll give you the very quick synopsis of where I came from and where I'm at now. I was born and raised in Southern California. Little kid, grew up with much more hair than I have now. I had a really amazing afro. I'm kind of jealous of those that still have great hair. Um, but I grew up in Southern California, there until I was about 25, studied psychology in graduate school. I mean, in college, played all the sports, really loved track and field. Um, I was driven to psychology because of a personal condition that I had growing up. I had childhood epilepsy, and so I really wanted to know how the brain
Mm.
worked. So I dedicated my study to understanding the brain, understanding cognition, a little bit of biology, like how are things working. And it turned out that I really enjoyed how people work together, and
Mm.
that put me in a position to leave Southern California and make my way out to Atlanta to go to grad school at Georgia Institute of Technology, or Georgia Tech. And that's where I studied industrial design, building of things, right? From a bottle to the phones that we have.
So
Um,
that's a completely different, but because that's
yeah,
yeah. I didn't even see that coming in the sense that you're into brains and how that works, and all of a sudden you're into physical things. How
it's it's
you know
it,
where how that you made that switch, or what triggered you to make that switch?
that's a good question. I My grandfather, I grew up with my mom and my grandparents, and my grandfather was a builder. He was a maker.
Mm,
Not by trade, not for money, but like for himself and the church that he was part of and the communities he was part of. He built things, he fixed things, and so I was always in
mm,
his garage fixing things with him. So very hands on, very much take things apart, see how they work, put them back together as best as you can. Um, so that led me to the need and want to be with products. And the great thing about products is people, humans use them, right? And so I got to understand humans and understand their patterns in order to present them experiences or solutions that will help them drink more water, right? Or drive a car at night, kind of stuff. So that was the transition into industrial design.
mhm.
I really wanted to be able to use my passion for human connection and the way that we work with ourselves to things that we use in our life.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's yeah. I interrupted you with the extra question,
No,
so
no.
so
So,
say
so
some more.
we're
How did
yeah.
it? Yeah.
So industrial design, making of things. I really enjoyed that area of study, and that was around 2006 when that study started. And if the audience recalls, something big happened in 2006. I mean, we had smartphones for a long time, for a number of years, but in 2006, the iPhone came out, right? And so this big industrial design product with a screen that had so much depth and potential was a reality. So midway through my graduate school, I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to start shifting on how humans interact with these interfaces and computers. I don't know if HCI was big at the time, but human computer interaction was really what I was studying: human factors, human
Hmm.
ergonomics, and how we interact with on screen technology. That became my thesis, and how to make accessible user interfaces through UI devices, and that kind of like jump started my career. I was doing a little bit of industrial design, the product hard stuff, physical stuff, and then a lot of how do we make the screen actually work for the consumers, the businesses, the people that are working with them. And that's been my career. It's really understand people and systems, so that I can translate that understanding through iterative design processes and a lot of collaboration into something that is not, for me, not exploitative, very accessible, and fun to use. So it's interesting. It's been an interesting path, um, and kind of cap off that. One word that I haven't said, that I think is important is that my focus in career has been very empathetic. It's been very intentionally. I want to understand myself and how I feel, and I also really want to understand how other people are functioning and feeling as well. And I realized that there was a gap in this design process that, if you're familiar with design thinking, if it starts with like empathize with your users. But the big gap that I saw happening in my career was, teams could empathize outside, but they were having really hard time empathizing with each other. They didn't have the skill sets, and they weren't talking, or they were exhausted. So that led me to kind of transitioning from like a very pure focused on UX design, to trying to help teams better their empathetic capabilities so they can do much better work inside for the people they serve. Um, and that's where I'm at now. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm helping people build empathy muscles.
Build empathy muscles. I like that idea.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I really like that idea. So it's already been a very interesting story that you share about the life or the things that is. So that thanks you for sharing that.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
that's I that this is
partially, like I said in the introduction to you and the pre-talk, like this is why I like people to introduce themselves, because that I would never have guessed the whole backstory. Not, or it would have taken me a lot of research, and then I would have
Yeah.
probably maybe emphasized some of the things where now it's interesting, like, yeah, the way you bring it, the way you also casually mention some other things, like indeed the maker, the fact with your grandfather. um
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of the maker community in Belgium, so I know
Oh,
some
very
people who
good.
have been doing it, and so it's only a couple of years, I would say. Well, maybe, well, a couple. No, it was actually already before the pandemic. So I knew some people who would indeed call them makers, which is, for me, interesting when you mentioned that, like your grandfather. I'm not sure if people would call themselves or were calling themselves makers at the time, but I
Yeah.
definitely recognize that that's something that was happening already, like many years ago. It's like today it's kind of hip or hipster or whatever I should call it.
Yep.
But back then that was kind of, this is the way we do it. We fix things around the house a little bit, especially
Yeah.
people coming out of the war in Europe. There was like, there was no way you could do it any other way, I would say it.
Yeah.
So I definitely recognize a lot of that, and it sometimes feels like a forgotten skill, or and well, I'll
Mhm.
just talk for myself. I'm interested in that, and at the same time, I know I'm not that handy. I haven't learned much of the things. I'm really happy. Like, for example, I want my children to fix their own bikes as much as possible, and they do it way better than I can, because I haven't learned it. And like, yeah, it's really sad
Yeah.
at some of that level. So it's good to, like you say, that you were inspired by your grandfather to help out
Mhm.
and change stuff. I think it's probably something you can almost can't learn at school. You can learn it at a little part, but if you're as a child doing it a lot, that
Yeah.
has a huge impact, I would say.
I think it definitely huge impact with me, and I think there's a couple thoughts on that. I think there's um, grandfather was born in 1925, so Depression era childhood, not having um, resources, right? Dealing with not having food or second pair of shoes, type thing. So repair everything.
Right.
Uh, Paired with um, the post war era, and again not having resources, and then at one point in his life and my mom's life, he was a missionary. He and my grandmother were missionaries in what is it called now? Democratic Republic of the Congo, building
Mm.
schools. And so being out in the middle of um, the Congo, building schools, he didn't there's no Home Depot, right? There's no place to go and get lumber. You have to like make it yourself. And
Hmm.
so it was very resource oriented. But to give you some credit, like we didn't you didn't grow. I don't think we grew up in the resource depleted era. But what we did
Hmm.
grow up in was this amazing computing era where it's like if you had interest, you could tinker with computers in the 90s. And you've
Hmm.
got this era of individuals that know down to the kernel how this thing works. And I fear that we've got so many layers of um, UI above how things function that we're we might not be handy with our hands to fix a thing, but we can probably read the back end code of some website to understand why it's failing. I don't know if that's going to be the case with our my kids. My kids are
Yeah,
12 and
I,
9.
I recognize a lot of that. Like, so my father worked with one of the earliest computers in Belgium at
Yeah.
university when there was not yet, IT science didn't exist at university. And so
Yeah.
after that, he learned a lot of that stuff. And so I kind of grew up with indeed knowing. So I've seen, at some point he worked for the Belgian army. So I joined him there on a day, just basically because I don't know, whatever reason, probably there was no school or something. And I've seen some of these computers. I was allowed to touch something
Mm.
there, basically try to play a game or something like that. I don't know, but
Wow.
I've seen a lot of that stuff. And indeed, for my children, like I remember my son, like 10 years ago, he said something to me like, how could you use a computer? Because I told him, like, back in that days, we didn't have internet. That didn't exist. Well, it did exist, but not for us, not at home. It existed between the campuses and between the large corporations, something like that. And he literally couldn't imagine that you could use a computer without the internet. It's like, how did you download software? Well, on your Xbox that he did have, we do put DVDs and you put software, put games on it. That's a little bit how
Right.
we worked. And before
Yeah.
that was discs and cassettes and whatever. But like
Oh my goodness.
for him,
Yeah.
it's like, okay. And like you say, there's so many layers that for a lot of youngsters today, they don't know a lot of what was there. Like
Hmm.
phones were just no wireless phones. They were like, if I wanted to talk privately with my girlfriend, I literally, and that's one major thing I did put a large cable, like 20 meters cable, so I can put the phone into my room, like
Yep.
literally crossing floors, because I wanted to
Yeah.
have some privacy to talk with her.
I
It's
I
like,
remember those times getting all tangled up in the cables. Yep.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly. Yeah, and it was always a mess afterwards. Like, what happened to these cables? I was just talking, but somehow they messed up. Well, yeah, that's.
oh
I
my
already
goodness.
feel very connected. Very. This is indeed. This it's like you're completely correct. I might have missed some part of the makeup part, but I've learned other kind of things, which is always the case, of course, with other,
Yeah.
because I do know. We talked before, just in the introduction, also a little bit what the kids in the digital age, the
Yeah.
age, the way they work with video, the way they work, it's just much more natural. Sharing
Yeah.
documents and both from home, editing things. I remember my 8-year old daughter having doing presentations at school, and where the older brothers would go to the friend's house and make something, and she was like, okay, I created the Google slide. Dad, can you help me share it with my friends? And then we do meet once to talk a little bit, but the rest of the week they did it online from their own home. Not yet her own computer. She didn't have a home computer at 8, but still,
Yeah.
she was able to do it from home and doing that together in a way that I think some of her teachers were not even able to do that. And
Yeah.
that's another age and another kind of thing that we are growing up into.
Uh,
So
Totally.
it's
They're
nice to
going to
see
have
that.
other maker skills that we won't have. That will be like, can you please reset my VCR, but in whatever our way is, right?
Literally, my how old would be my daughter? I think she was 10 or 11, and there was a problem with the beamer in school, and the teacher couldn't fix it, and everybody in her class was like, "Hey, Heike, you should be able to do that." Unfortunately, the teacher asked it a boy that totally had no idea. He didn't know anything about computers, and like literally everybody in the class was like, "She will probably know."
She will do it.
Uh, and she was not allowed to. I remember her coming home pissed off, like, okay, this is the whatever. Like there was already a little bit of a small or large feminist growing up inside of a 10-year-old girl, and
Yeah.
remembering that the next day that teacher was ill and there was a replacement teacher who had the same problem,
Hmm.
and there again the same thing happened, and everybody watched her and said, la, she knows how to do it, and she fixed it in like 5 or 10 seconds, and she was so proud when she came home, like, hey,
Yeah.
I knew how to do it.
What a
And
wonderful
indeed
story.
that is kind of, it's like resetting the VCR, because it was probably not that hard, but it's like reading what's on the knobs, trying to understand it, knowing a little bit how a computer works and needs to reboot and whatever, and
Yeah.
figuring it out in yeah, digital investigation way, I would say. Just like
Yeah.
probably both of us we did with the VCR, with how to change the timing,
Exactly.
because that
It's like
was
we
what
are
a lot
the
of us had to do.
we have VCR language. They have, I don't know, the new age technology language, whatever
Mhm.
that is.
Yeah, and
Wow.
it's interesting because just for I need to show you. What, two
Yeah.
seconds? So
No, please.
just for this week, I found back this little camera. Well, I didn't find it back. I got it back from a friend of mine who borrowed it for 2 years, and that triggered me into downloading all the tapes that we still had and to put them in a secret location so that we could watch it. And but
Yeah.
my son, the 20-year-old, he was like, why did you never took it down from the cassettes? Why did you never? Because this is like some of them were like when he was born, so 20 years
Wow.
ago,
Yeah.
21 years ago. And it's like, why didn't you do this? Like literally we couldn't do it. There was no YouTube, there was no way to put it. My computers would not be allowing to put that on. Even
No.
the software to download it, I'm not even sure if it existed. And for him it's like
Yeah.
it's
It's right there
mind-boggling.
now. Yeah. Yeah.
and
We
and
have
now
it.
it's
I
like,
still have
yeah.
cassette tapes.
Exactly, yeah, but they're like, yeah, we don't use all of that anymore. All the videos are, and everybody has a video recorder on their phone, so that's why we haven't used it, like you say.
Yeah.
Basically, since 2000, I think the last recording we did in 2010 or something, and then indeed I did bought my first iPhone, and since then I think we no longer did any recording. I was wondering this week, why did we stop working, and now I realized I did bought my first iPhone in 2010, 2011, something like that,
Uh-huh.
and that
Okay.
must have been the moment that we stopped recording these videos. So it's
Yeah.
just,
Stop.
yeah, this is a
Stop
large
recording.
introduction. I hope people still like it, but for me, it shows it's a little bit the history of well,
Of
two old
technology.
dudes
Two old
and
guys.
technologies. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I want to jump into that first question. What is something people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
Yeah. Um, I've over the years, and I already shared it with you. I think over the years, I've realized that uh, I need to be vulnerable to my imperfections, and not be afraid of them.
Mm.
And I think that a lot of my imperfections have created who I am, right? And some of the things I wasn't able to control. And I said earlier that I grew up with childhood epilepsy, and I don't have it anymore. Thank goodness I grew out of it, or I grew into a space where I can control it. I'm not really sure.
I had no
Um,
idea that that was actually age limited as well, because I, yeah, know some people who had epilepsy for
yeah,
since young, but had it like for the full year. So I had no idea that was actually possible to grow out of that. So thanks
yeah.
for learning, teaching me something.
Certainly. How that works, I do not know. I didn't get that deep in my behavioral
Now I'm really
psychology.
disappointed.
I but what I do know is like it set me up to see the world differently, and really appreciate the unseen differences that we have, right? So you could see me right now, on this screen, and never know that I had a condition, or I had a disability. And I think a majority of humans have something in their past that has really put them in a different position, right? You and I both wear glasses, right? That is these things help us see. Some people need
And this is,
medication.
I really
Yeah.
like your example, because we no longer see wearing glasses as a disability, but technically
Right.
it is.
Yes.
And the older we come, the more disability. Or I definitely, these glasses of like double side, or I don't know how it is, long and short. So there's
Yes.
two kind of things on it, which I didn't need a couple of years ago. I
Yeah.
only had simple glasses, to say it that way.
Yeah.
But it's incredible how that allows us to be still work. And yeah, if I would look at uh, middle ages or whatever, then basically I would not be able to do half, not to say all of what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. These assistive technologies really help us. And there's a lot of people that are relying on them for livelihood, for just wellness, and to really deeply appreciate the things in other people that I don't see. Let them share themselves as much as they want, so that I can be there with them. Right? Be a really good. Everyone talks about being a good storyteller. I like being a good story listener, so that I can hopefully make that other person feel seen, heard, and cared for, no matter what they're dealing with.
I haven't heard the term story listener, but I just immediately am drawn to that because it's like, yeah, that's if we want to have storytellers, we should also people have to listen, and usually we care or we talk a lot and we look forward to people who do the storytelling.
Hmm.
But what I'm hearing, and maybe I'm interpreting it in the wrong way, but what I'm hearing is that the storytellers are typically ones that might we call them leaders, or they share something and they try to make a movement or some change. But indeed, if I look at coaching myself, a huge part is indeed listening to people, trying to ask sometimes easy, sometimes hard questions like, did I understand you? So that the
Hmm.
people feel seen and really feel like, hey, this is who I am.
Yeah.
I really like that idea. What made you come up with that term? Did you invent that term? What inspired you to start using that one?
Um, I don't know. I probably heard it. I didn't invent it. I'm pretty sure I have a URL with story listeners in it, because us mid range technologists own a lot of URLs. uh,
Not, yeah.
I think
That's the interesting description. Yeah, use words, I would say.
I I think that I think that I've always been intrigued by storytellers. Like, good comedians are really great storytellers,
Mm.
right? Those that can do spoken poetry, amazing storytellers. Artists that are singers, like, I mean, we're talking about verbal storytelling, right? But in order to understand an artist that isn't verbally sharing something with you, you have to be observant of them. Like,
Mm.
let's just say that Eve, you create pottery, right? You can give me a little story, but if I sit down and just look at it and really like turn the pot and like turn your ceramics around and really kind of get involved with it, I'm being a observer, right? And that's what you would want out of me as someone that presented it to me. And you've heard of the TED, pardon me, TED Talks,
Hmm.
or any of these other big like verbal sharing platforms. Uh, I think there's something to be said about like the people in the audience that are really actually involved and engaged. Like, I'm sure you've been in front of people that look like they're asleep or they're checking their phone or just completely absent. That doesn't really make for an enjoyable storytelling. So story listening is
Mm.
a very powerful part of the relationship, that I think we overlook.
I find that um, I fully understand what you say. You have to pay attention. At the same time, I've seen it also with, for example, children. A couple of years ago in Europe, there was, or in Belgium, it was very popular to have some kind of fiddlers where you people could play with their hands and others.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that in some situations with myself, that if I have something to do, and it might even look like I don't know, um, so it might be sometimes to other people look like I'm not paying attention, where at the same time that allows me to be fully in that moment. And it could be fiddling, it could be writing. I've noticed that, of course, if I write on paper, people feel less I don't know, negative about that. If I would do that on my phone, people might, why you're doing, if I even if I take notes on my phone. I've noticed that. But I think we're living in an interesting situation where, yeah, people feel indeed much more attentive when we do only do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
um, and it's one of the hardest parts about remote meetings or whatever, because people might be doing something completely different.
Hmm.
Um, for me, just when you joined, I was still on a walking desk. For me, one of the ways I can pay attention much more in difficult meetings is actually walking and making sure that my body is moving in a way, because it really
Yeah.
helps me. Not sure if you recognize that with other people or with yourself. Is there,
Oh
yeah, I don't
yes.
know.
I'm going to give myself away here. So uh, in what back in the day when when I was in an office, I was the guy sitting at the table listening and maybe doodling, not necessarily um, like writing anything of worth, but just like maybe even writing a little picture down. Like I'm trying to find some doodles here from an earlier conversation. So maybe I'll take like some notes, right?
Mm,
And it's funny, I don't have any sketches because I usually it's more visual than that. Um, but I have recently, I need I need my hands to be doing something, or I need my body to be
mhm,
doing something so I can be here. This entire conversation with you, I've had a drink of water. That's one thing that I do. And I'm shuffling cards.
mm,
So you can't see it, but I've been shuffling cards the entire time we've been talking. And that helps me kind of like stay in touch with you and myself, and not get distracted by maybe a tab or I don't know, a bird out the window.
mhm. But I can imagine if you're sitting in a room with me,
Hmm.
or with other people, that they might say, "Why are you shuffling cards? It's distracting and whatever." And while
Yeah,
actually, like you say, it helps you to focus.
it,
So
it definitely does, and it works well on a Zoom meeting since you can't see my hands.
exactly.
I'm
So
doing magic tricks over here for you. No.
yeah, but I like it that you bring, because okay, well, later on we'll talk also about remote meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I think sometimes people say, yeah, remote is doing a hard time for connection. This actually allows you to stay in the moment, to stay with the conversation. I don't get distracted by your hands, and I don't know it. Now, personally,
yeah,
I know a lot about how well I've recognized that with myself and with other people, so it doesn't bother me when I'm
yeah,
physically with someone. But I do know a lot of people who would actually feel offended by that,
yeah.
where actually, like you say, it actually helps you.
It does. I think this is maybe where we can start taking conversations when we're with other people. It's like how do you listen, right? How do you best listen?
Mhm.
And if I'm telling you a story and you're not looking at me, and maybe you're staring at your phone or you're making doodles, am I still here? Are you still with me?
Mhm.
Because I think that with the growth acknowledgement of the neurodiversity that I believe everyone has, knowing that we have attention diversity as well, and how we interact with each other is something. It's very important because you've got individuals that I'm forgetting mm, that cannot look you in the eye, right? It's too powerful for them, so they will look down. That does not mean that they're not paying attention to you. That means that they are protecting themselves and their ability to be attentive by not looking you in the eye. So
Mm.
knowing that before having a conversation is an interesting, might be a new interesting way of uh, a handshake, right? Like I
Mm.
want to be here with you. How are you here with me? How do you listen best, right? Um, and as a
I really like it, because the
yeah,
like there is the diversity. Just today I read something about handshakes, where in certain cultures people, like, if man, even if we've met before, if you on a day-to-day basis I would see you again, they would consider it normal to shake everybody's hand, even if there's like 30 people in the company. We people would walk around and shake everybody's hands. Like,
okay,
for others it feels like, why you keep doing it? But if I would not do this, people would feel offended. And I was like, yeah, but yeah, so that it's a different kind of handshake. It's a different kind of, what do you expect from a handshake? What do you expect for getting that connection? I really like that stress there. And
yeah,
how indeed, for there is someone, I've interviewed more than a year ago, but that was a person saying that, she learned a lot about different body languages because she was growing up in Africa. In
Mm,
So there was a different culture at home, where at home I think it was, she needed to look at her parents, because then the parents knew, indeed, you're listening to me.
mhm.
And if the parents were saying something like "you misbehave," she needed to look straight in the eyes of the parents and say something. Okay, then people knew that she was paying attention. But at school, which was an English school, because it
Okay.
was, that's the country that was colonized by England,
Hmm.
the teachers would be offended if they would look if you would keep looking at them. If they were talking to you, you had to watch down. You were not allowed to watch. And so she learned at a very young age, I think it was 6 or 7, or maybe 10,
Yeah.
that you had two different ways that you were expected to behave without even being told. Because very literally, you were like, "Why are you watching at me? Look down." Or at home, like, "Why are you not
Yeah.
watching at me?" Like, very conflicting situations, but learning, hey, there is a different situation for home, for school, and that kind of stuff.
It's
And it really
wow.
ties into what you're saying. Yeah, it's like knowing that there is different cultures, that there is different way of doing it. But
Yeah.
I don't remember me going into a conversation and saying, "Okay, how do you want to be treated? Do you like if I, as either an employee or whatever, if I look straight into your eyes, or do you prefer that I look away?" And
Right.
is that paying more attention, or is that actually paying more respect to you? Because it's a little bit about respect and other things. So that's
Yeah. Wow. It's the context switching is real. I mean, it's the knowing the audience and knowing how to interact with them is important to the conversation, to the share, right? You made me think of something. I went to a basketball game a couple months ago with a good friend, and he mentioned to me something that I hadn't thought about when it comes to um, male with male like outings. Um, and he's like, and he said something about like men like to sit next to each other and watch something versus sit right in front of each other and stare at each other. I was like, wow, interesting. He's like, he told me about like conflict avoidance by staring at each other, and then we're together as a buddy sitting next to each other. Whereas if you think about, well, my wife and I, if we will go on a date, we don't sit next to each other. We sit across from each other so we can see each other. So it's not a
Mm.
conflict thing. It's a romance thing, or it's an intimacy thing. So sometimes the eyes is too intimate depending on the context of the situation. And I'm guessing the classroom that your other interviewer was talking about was, it was a predominantly black classroom with a European or English teacher. So there was a social hierarchy in that class too.
I don't know if indeed there was that difference, but there definitely was a hierarchy about. But the person also explained that the hierarchy, or again, it's more than a year ago that I
Yeah.
done the interview. But I think the person also explained that there was a similar kind of hierarchy at home, as in, as a child you have to respect your elders,
Hmm.
which is also a kind of hierarchy, or at least in some cultures.
Yeah.
But it acted out in a very different way, and again, very cultural dependent. And
Yeah.
if a school, and I would, my assumption or hope, and maybe I'm too naive in that, would be that even black teachers in a school might behave with that same system, because that's how you behaved in the system,
Maybe so.
independent of
Yeah.
the race of the thing it is. But it's indeed something that we hardly talk about. And we're living in a world that is much more globally, and we work with people from completely different cultures. This is partly why I really like to do these kind of things, to learn about so many different cultures. And at the
It is
same
wonderful.
time, we sometimes forget about what I've never thought. Well, like you say, the story listeners,
Hmm.
um it yeah, it's so wonderful to have to think about all of that. And so, yeah, and we moved in all kinds of directions with that question.
I can see our
Maybe
pattern now, Eve. I see our pattern.
I do want to go back a little bit. So the second part of the question was, but has influenced you in who you are.
Yeah.
Do you know some of these influences? Can you say some more about that? We already talked briefly about
Yeah.
it, or maybe in many ways, but
Yeah. I think the influences really comes back to I want to be able to like given what I had and the invisibility of what I had was dealing with. I want to it's influenced me to give patience and space to the relationships and the people that I that are dear to me, right? Even the people that I might serve from a design or user experience design standpoint. Like I need to slow down enough for them to be able to feel comfortable to share. And I think that's the biggest influence. Is like when everyone's going real fast and trying to get things done super quick. I'm like, let's slow down because we have people involved here. How can we actually hear them and serve them as best as we can versus kind of give them the fast food version of a of a listening or a fast food version of a product.
mm, that's
I want to give people a full 5-course meal.
yeah, I really like the metaphor. Well, like with all metaphors, we can take it in all kinds of directions, but it immediately makes, well, this is why I'm such a fan of metaphors, because I think everybody can have, and probably all different kind of ideas about what that means, but it's very clear that that difference between indeed a fast food thing or a five yeah part meal,
Mhm.
that's really is, and both have their values. I mean, sometimes I
Definitely.
just like a fast food snack,
Oh,
but with a large party, and even that might be so, maybe with a large party we just want to have burgers, but it's definitely a different kind of party than, let's say, okay, let's sit down and take hours for eating
totally. Yeah.
the large meal. I think
Yeah.
that's that's a really
I, I, f- I
wonderful way of
I
looking
figure everyone else is well, the majority of what the people I'm that I feel like I'm around. I think they're gonna get a lot of fast food, and I want to be a different option in
at.
the
Right.
way that I approach them and whatever I might be building with them or for them.
I can definitely see that. Okay, let's move to. We've been talking for a long time, but it's only the second
I'll go quicker.
question. Well, well, depending on, for me, it's okay if what I've learned is many different things, I would say. So, but if you have not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what could have become of you?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I've evolved a lot, and so I feel like I'm becoming things that I didn't know I was supposed to be. I didn't
Mm,
think I was supposed to be a facilitator of empathy workshops. Um, that's definitely something that I've become. But if I hadn't gotten into this design side, this technology side of life, I would have probably. And there was a very small part of small important part of my life where I was preparing to become um, a Peace Corps volunteer. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with
mm,
it, but 2 years of service in another country, helping to build business or helping to just like stabilize community. You're not there to um, spread religion or anything like that. You're there as like a peace builder. And I think that I'd probably, not saying I won't do this later in my life, but be more of a diplomat, someone that can go in and help build communities, someone that really dedicate their life to both that and build and working on policy to make sure that there's good equity within systems that we are part of.
mm.
So that would probably have been my if I hadn't discovered design, I probably would have gone that direction. But like I said, we're constantly evolving. I might still end up there.
I really like, so yeah, but it's interesting that um, when I ask this question, many people think about something that happened in their past. And it's like, okay, I could have done that now. And for you,
Mhm.
it's like it could have been, but it's like there's more opening to maybe in the future this or that and that. It's a take. I'm not. You're not the first to do that, but it's and probably also not the last. But I really like that take as a different kind of way of looking into that.
Yeah.
Again, many people sometimes when we talk about, and this is partly why I asked this question, is that sometimes, especially with my children, like deciding going to university, and some of these things is like, oh, this is the most important decision, and it will have an impact on all of my life in a way that is true, but it doesn't mean that everything is defined by that, because like you start already earlier, there's a lot of things that you move on and you do other kind of things, and in this kind you kind of say like, hey, this is also some kind of interest, and maybe I'll do it, maybe not. Only the future will tell. And that's really, yeah, kind of thing. And again, with a lot of what you told also about with your grandfather going to Congo, like there is also some kind of missionary there, and like helping out, and okay,
Yeah.
doing you give it as example as the maker, but there is definitely also about the community work, and
Mhm.
while many of the people who did that out of good doing and with the idea, let's make the world a better place, with hopefully respect for the local people. But there is a lot that is there, and I hear a similar kind of story with you, kind of like that. That's interesting. Is
Mhm.
that correct? That there is a link to that, or am I just inventing something here?
I No, you're not inventing it. I think you're a really great story listener. Yeah, there's definitely a link, and I think that I don't know how much uh, heredity or just nature and nurture of me growing up kind of planted these seeds in me, to want to follow those types of paths in life. Um, there's definitely a thread, um, and one that I don't necessarily know the path, right? It's like
Mm.
there's a thread, there's a seed, and maybe I can water it, maybe I can't, but I know that it's part of my life right now, um, and it's not something I'll discard. I can give you something that's completely left field that I almost wanted to go for. Would that be of interest? If I didn't go this direction, there was a point in time when I ran track and field, um, and I did a lot of events. So one of my coaches eventually told me to be a decathlete. So I was a decathlete for a while, and I was okay. Didn't make it to the Olympics, but got kind of close. Um, I I would have become like if psych-
That's sad because that was an interesting part of the story. Let's see how long it takes before he's back.
I don't know what happened.
Hello, I have no idea either. Yeah.
It just went all purple, but I like the purple.
Okay, and yeah, I was doubting at some point if I was the one who lost the connection, but I was still here. The recording keeps going. I didn't explain that in the beginning, that if that happens, because it happened like once or twice, or well, maybe three, I don't know, a couple of times. But if people come back to the exact same link, the recording keeps going. Of course, I will edit this part out.
Okay,
That's the thing. So
I'm
you were
sorry about that.
talking. Do you still? Well, we don't know whose fault it is. That doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Do you still remember where you were in the story?
I was like, if you wanted to hear another, potential avenue of if I wasn't doing UX, what would I be doing? I can pick up there.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the if if I if I wasn't in UX or doing this design work or doing empathy lab, and maybe something in my early career, maybe even education, kind of like dissuaded me from psychology. I was a track and field athlete. I had a coach at one point in time that says, "You're doing a lot of events, so maybe you should try out this decathlon thing." So I did that, and I was decent, but not like Olympic grade. So, but it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed the coaching and mentoring of other athletes. I was team captains of where I was at, and could have seen myself become a coach, track and field coach at some university. Completely different than right now.
Mhm. That's again. This is why I like so much the story. Yeah, it always takes extra time. So people can already see probably when they watch this how long this whole conversation takes out. But at the same time, I hope that people feel when they hear this indeed how rich your story is and how rich everything is around that. And like for you, and I would say some other people, you see so many options and you go for one thing or you might go for something else, and I hope that inspires other people like, hey, there is actually more things, and that doesn't bring any value, or that's no value on other people. If you have just one life and you keep doing the
Yeah,
same thing for that, that's also fine. uh, but it shows that it's kind of a decision, like in a way that you bump into other parts, and at some point
hmm
you decide, hey, this is something I want to explore, or maybe there's something I don't want to explore. Like you said earlier on, there might be
yeah,
something else that you want to explore later, but right now you're like, hey, kind of still happy with what I'm doing.
yeah.
I don't know if it's because you're learning or because you see so value that you bring for other people, but right now it's like this is the current path I'm doing. But I do see options, and maybe at some point that option becomes brighter as this is where I want to go, or maybe something else will pop up before you even go there. That's
Right.
I really like that kind of way of thinking and helping and going into that. So thanks for sharing that. And I
Very
want to
welcome.
move to that third question. What is currently your biggest challenge, and well, at least the biggest one that you want to put out on the internet, of course, and why is that a good thing for you?
Oh gosh. I think I had a conversation the other day about this biggest challenge, and I keep seeing it happening or mentioning in my in what the algorithms feed me. Sometimes
Mm,
we're in a vacuum chamber of our own echoes, right? Um,
right, exactly.
the one the biggest go. What was that?
No, no, I was saying that's exactly what we're in echo chambers and we don't always realize it. I think
Yeah.
today, maybe even more than some, or at least for myself, I realize it much more because I was some years ago, like, yeah, very much surprised by some things that happened in the world because I was like, the people around me would all think that's impossible, and all of a sudden it does happen. It's like, okay, that means I'm in some kind of echo chamber.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't want to speak too deeply on echo chambers, but the world's built in that way, and we've built technology that kind of serves in that way. So it's not like a fault of ours, but I think it's, if we're curious and we learn about, oh, this is different, and we don't like reject it, but we kind of stay curious with it. That's human forward. But the biggest thing, the biggest challenge, I think, is the question, um, and it continues to be, is I don't know how to put this. I I'm hearing and I'm reading a lot about how businesses and communities are devaluing empathy for themselves and each other. And I just recently read an article, and I'm going to paraphrase it pretty badly, in Fast Company, chief design officer at Rivian, which is an electric truck company. He's talking about brands, and he's being interviewed, and he's realizing that there's not much brand loyalty out there. There's not much brand trust. And he says something about words like empathy are now hollow. And that's my word. He's just saying words like empathy are not as strong as they used to be. And people think it's just greenwashing, or it's just wellness washing for companies. And so there's a lot of individuals that are like, no, we're not going to do any empathy stuff. Nope, we're not going to do any diversity work, or we don't need to make this accessible to low vision individuals. Like, it's baffling to me. And I think that's my biggest challenge. Is like there's an industry wide pushback on this concept of empathy for self and others, which is my business, and what I believe in deeply, that I don't think comes from a I think people are educated. I think they understand what empathy is. I think that they're exhausted because an industry and companies have gave them so much fast food that they don't have any more time to pay attention to the things that make them feel better. So that's my biggest challenge. Like, it's a big hurdle right now, and it's putting me as a person in my business, as my offering, into a position of how do I pivot? How do I open up and not become negative to this, but actually help the transition of this narrative to a better place, versus agreeing with the narrative that empathy and compassion is not what our communities need to live within and practice and support and cherish and enjoy. So that's a big, almost philosophical business strategy challenge right now for me, is how to make sure that the practice of empathy still continues to permeate our cultures and our companies.
Yeah, I'm almost speechless in a way, because it's I understand what you say about the greenwashing, about empathy, about, yeah, it seems like definitely diversity at some point becomes fake diversity, fake inclusion, and everything. I definitely recognize that. And it doesn't mean that the real diversity isn't important. It's just
Correct.
important to see, like, okay, what does it actually mean? And let's indeed, just like with fake agile and all these other kind of things, is like
Yes.
there will always be, like, Jerry Weinberg used to say, the wider you spread it, the thinner it gets. And yes, there is definitely some things. Yeah, and I'm also going back and forth with agile on that. Yeah, if what is how bad is it? Is that the fake agile is spread? What I've noticed in some companies, that even when I'm trying to help, and sometimes it feels like this is a strong bad agile, some people learn about the real good values as going conversations, and I see people learning better and learning about, hey, what is diversity? What does that mean? And probably sometimes feeling more, how would I say it, um, demotivated, because they realize that there is a better world out there, and they're in in a in a place where they don't see that, and that is demotivating. At the same time, it's also, for me, showing like, hey, there's a lot of people that actually do care about that. There's people that abuse that situation to get more power, to get whatever that they can think, hey, look, we also do this nice and shiny thing, where actually, like, everybody knows it's not. But that doesn't mean that, that the real value is not there. It just means that we have to sometimes make it much more clear why we're doing stuff, and helping out people some of the misunderstandings. And yeah, it is really sometimes frustrating and hard.
Yeah, it's I hear you with the quick agile, or the other methodology for for doing collaborative efforts, right? It's um, what did you say, that the wider it's spread, the thinner it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I think sometimes I'm not a rah rah cheerleader. I don't have a big name. I don't have. I'm not glitzy and glamorous. I'm not wearing like a gold lame jacket over here and with flashy lights behind me. No, I'm trying to be
Mm.
as like real and humble
Authentic
and
is the
excited
word
as
I would say.
possible
Mm.
about the thing that I believe in, and I think you're the same way. And it kind of and at times it frustrates me that someone from Las Vegas comes in and puts on a show, gets all the people, and um, then drops them, then doesn't actually help them out. Uh, please pause. Give me 1 second to make sure that someone got the doorbell.
Right. Okay, let's go.
I knew it would happen. Eve, thank you. Neighbor came over. He's retired and he likes having conversations. He's a really good guy.
Let's join him in.
Right.
It might be a different kind of conversation. Uh,
He has a wealth of knowledge. He would be awesome. Um, where were we?
so I want to go back a little bit because I talked about the biggest challenge, and but the second part of that question is, why is that a good thing for you? Is there something there that you can
Ooh,
see?
yeah,
Um,
I think that my best work as a experienced designer, as a person that's trying to give something to someone else, is done not with the absence of pain, but with the understanding of it, and with the actual reality of it being there. And I think that challenges produce not necessarily like physical pain, but just like friction. Challenges produce hurdles. They produce things to get in your way. They also produce like um, they give me something to focus on and make a decision about. Right, I can have an opinion about the direction of the narrative. I can be much more focused, and I think it's the that's the benefit of challenges, right? I get to choose whether I want to take them on, and then I get to create a focus on how I'm going to do that, without compromising my ethics and what I believe when it comes to like my profession, right? And my point of view when it comes to empathy or team building or community building. Um, it it gives me a chance to join the narrative, and counterbalance what is being said when everyone else is starting to drop off because they can't sell their fast food anymore.
mm. I really like that, and indeed, and sometimes as coaches, we come in after somebody sleeky sold them something like, "Hey, this is it used to be in the early 2000s. There used to be, what was it? A kind of animal burger. I don't know what was it again, but it was like, okay, we people don't have the money for a real burger, so we buy them a lot less, and they take I don't know, a squirrel burger, I think it was.
You're right.
And it's like, yeah, that's unhealthy, it's not good, but it's way cheaper, and that way we can sell it. And
Right.
actually, with I really like the idea much more of a burger over fast food versus real meal and these kind of things.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are people who want the fast service and they want the fast food and everything.
Yeah.
But they sell it as a quick thing that is very nutritious and very good, but we all know it's fast food or
Right. Yeah. Don't lie to me. Like if you're gonna say like this is gonna be a band-aid to the big problem, just say it's gonna be a band-aid to the big problem. It's not gonna solve it. Be honest with me, because maybe I need a band-aid. Maybe all I can afford is a band-aid right now. Right.
hmm,
And
exactly.
and when I say afford, I think more than just the money, but time, energy. Right. We've got many more commodity or currency things that we need to trade for some of the coaching work that we have. And I completely understand if a company doesn't have the time, the energy, or the money to do it. Cool. But realize what you're going to get from the others if you are unable to put yourself in that position.
Thanks,
Yeah. What is
thanks
it? There's
for sharing.
yeah. There's what is that saying? You can have it cheap, quick, or of high quality. Right. Pick
And you
two.
have to pick two exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's that we have people that are trying to pick all three, and then getting mad that they got bad quality, right? They want it quick, they want it cheap, and they're like, wait, this isn't good. This isn't agile. This is some waterfall weirdness. This isn't empathy. This is just patting each other on the back.
That's yeah. I recognize that the whole part and it's and this is for me indeed why I take the time so long to have these conversations because I
Mhm.
think it's when we have the depth to go into that and unfortunately yeah I know that YouTube will blame me for or not well not blame but like okay if I don't have 10 minutes conversations and putting it out it's like I don't the algorithm doesn't like it but I at that level don't care. My kids think it's crazy because who watches this and whatever. And it's not about the numbers there. It's for me, it's like how we can have the deep conversations and that it can inspire people and yeah,
Yeah,
then people could watch this. Because that's about it. A lot of what we do, what you said in your story is the same thing. It's like, okay, I want to bring that value. I want to have people listening to feel heard. I want the same thing in design and other kind of things. Like let's
yeah,
not go for the cheap burgers and still there is value in that that's the other kind of thing and some people might not have time to watch 3 hours and that's that or 2 hours or whatever and they
yeah,
want to have the quick fix but the quick fix is not the solution in the long run and having the long conversations and having
you got it. Oh no. Oh gosh, happened again.
oh, but you were brought you back and then you were gone again so like
I just pressed. Uh, I don't know what happened. It just went purple again. Um,
yeah,
you
I saw it happening. Then I could bring you back, but then I was off screen, so I don't know. But we're here back again. But actually, I was kind of in the at the end of the question, so that was for me interesting because I wanted indeed to say let's go to the next one
all
because
right?
like the last part we were talking a lot about basically this kind of question what drives you and what are the things where you're passionate about and because of that I want to also go a little bit below that is that
Yeah.
um, drive is about passion and about it where did you find and you talked already a little bit about your grandfather and some of
Hmm.
there do you know where that passion where that drive is coming from much more than the drive itself
Yeah. Yeah. It's a it's a 3-word question that is really big. what
yeah
drives what drives you? Um, yeah, definitely. Like obviously childhood and experience that has driven me pretty well in my life. I think that the one piece, and my daughter Juliet just walked by and gave me a great big smile. She just got out of school, and that leads me to like another drive. Is not definitely my kids. And it's not a selfish drive. It is a drive as an adult that has kind of been in this work for a long time. It's a drive to finish what I started, do the best that I can so I can hand off something that, whether it is a small slice of the world or just like experiences with me where they see me at my best with some struggle and some triumphs, some wins, to see like I can hold I can hold my own and actually start changing and be proud of my changes and help other people out, right? I think it's a very much, I want my kids to see we can change our environment or we can alter it. We can be open to personal evolution and kind of like be curious. So I think they give me a lot of, I didn't see this coming, and maybe that's a good thing, but watching how the world reacts to them has really helped to drive me to realize that I kind of helped create that world, and maybe I can start
Mm.
shifting it a little bit, um, tiny bit, like a smidgen of a trajectory change. What is Buckminster Fuller calls it the trim tab, right? I want to be the trim tab
Mm.
on the big ship. Like I want to just make a small change that will be a big movement over time. And I have the ability to do that. So that's a big drive for me. It's like I matter, and I matter to them, and I matter to a whole lot of people. So how can I do the best with my presence now?
It's yeah, it's such a nice story. And again, like yeah, I was asking where is that drive coming from, like earlier in life, and you actually put it back to your children, and of course many of us were proud of that, and what is, but also about show. Basically what I'm hearing is also kind of being like a role model for your children, like, hey, this is what is there,
Yeah.
and what, without telling them this is what you need to become, because that's the trap as
Follow me.
parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and all of, well, I think at least I try to avoid it, but at the same time I also fall for that trap sometimes. I
Yeah.
definitely see that, but it's more like, okay, I want to give you inspiration, let's do that kind of thing, and that allows you to pick your world. And sometimes I as a father will understand, sometimes not, but it's not really that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, I just, what I hear with your story is like, I want inspiration, I want to give you, like, hey, this is what are options there. So
Yeah.
that's
You said a great word there. Maybe it's two words. I don't know. Role model, right?
mm,
Um, and I think the one thing that I've learned over time is we don't actually have a choice to be a role model. We are, right? If we're here, someone's watching us. It could be our kids. It could be neighbors' kids. It could be other adults, right? And I feel like the, you're in Belgium. I'm in United States, and so I think that we might have similar. Um, I'm just going out on a limb that I feel like we both have similar Western ideological, like individual societies around us. Maybe less for you
mm,
than for me. Um, but we're pack animals. Like we're community people. Like we're animals
mm,
that belong in community, which means that being a role model is not a choice, right? Being a leader is not a choice. It is actually a responsibility. And I think that that's a big driver of me because I want to be responsible to my community, right? To my family. because I feel like my grandparents were able to do that for me without telling me, right? Just inviting me into the garage and be like, yes, I'm making a candelabra, or yes, I'm fixing this typewriter for our neighbor. Like, it was just an invite to watch, right? And if I can invite to watch all the things that I'm doing to help the community, well, then I'm doing my job right.
Mm, exactly. And it's, yeah, I like also how you put it broader and small at the same time. It's like that and like you say, it's taking responsibility is, well, I understand the part of it. It's not a choice. It's like you need to do it. I need to, but at the same time, you could still decide on some of these things. And
Yeah.
I recognize that at some point, like I was leading Code Dojo Ghent as a lead coach.
Yeah.
And at some point I said, okay, I'm going to step down because I want to, first of all, I want to spend time with my family. I saw there's other kind of things, but
Yeah.
also there was like, okay, let's take the responsibility for growing other people to let them grow and do that. And it's
Totally.
hard to let go something I helped grow and I cared a lot about. And at the same time, it's like it's not that I don't care about it. It's just I care so much about it that I know that it's better in the long term that okay, I stand up and okay,
Yeah.
then coveted. So it's realized like, okay, I might need to step a little back in because yeah, it's hard to restart. But
Yeah.
very quickly, as of like, okay, let's leave it go. And that's it's for me that's the kind of the going back and forth about that responsibility. It's
Yes.
showing people being a leader and doing that kind of thing um and it's like you say, it's somewhere ingrained in me, and that sometimes makes it harder to let go, even because you know that it's the best choice. But like that's like with parents, you know, you have to let them walk and fall because that's how they learn to walk. But that, yeah, of course, if I see them walking and to the stairs or other kind of things, that's very dangerous. But as long as
Right.
it's not dangerous, I need to
Right.
let them fall down. And it's so hard as a growing up parent. And I think with communities and with a lot of what we're doing, or at least for
Mhm.
me, I recognize that. And when I see you nodding, I think you recognize a lot of that.
I think your story, Eve, about like getting to a point of of your, was it that you were teaching that coding dojo, of you're like, I need to do something else right now, and
Mhm.
also bring some get someone else a chance to take this over. I think in many areas of corporate life, they would call stepping down a negative thing, right? When it's not. It's like it's self-preservation. It is it's like realigning with whatever other things might have been driving you in your life at that time, and it is opening space for other people to try. To your point, like walk around, toddle around, fall down, like that's okay. I'm still here for you. I'll pick you up, brush you off. But this is
Well,
your rodeo now.
yeah, that's I didn't learn that with my first child because with my first child I was actually indeed picking it up, and with my second, at some point, and I don't know what triggered it, but at some point he fell, and I didn't pick him up, but I sat down next to him and I let him stand up again using my body
Uh-huh.
because I somehow had the feeling that if I pick you up, I kind of take the responsibility and say, oh, it's not,
Mm,
and it's okay. And but I also tell picking up is kind of, hey, something went wrong because I need to pick you up. And
hmm.
somehow with the second one, I thought I showed you like, okay, it might hurt. And of course, if there's no blood involved and anything, but if it's the kind of normal falling that the children do when
Yeah.
they learn to walk, it's like I try to just stand there and he can pick himself up,
Yeah.
but it's something I needed to learn. I don't know if somebody taught me or if I saw it, but with the second one,
Yeah.
I really realized that hey, there is also another way of doing that.
Yes.
Is that something you recognize?
Giving people autonomy. Yeah. It's and knowing where, yeah, I love that. I love your story. It's because, I think that it's team or organization or context aware. It's like maybe this, I think you're sharing a span of experience, right? And I think that's where humble leadership and servant leadership comes in, where you react not because of yourself, but for other people. Are you familiar with this is one of the things that we talk about often at the beginning of our workshops, is like, we don't believe in the golden rule, we believe in the platinum rule. So the golden rule is treat other people the way that you want to be treated. Well, that could be bad, because maybe I want to be treated badly, right? Maybe I don't have good self-worth.
Or because the example I always give is I don't drink any alcohol, and I still get lots of people that when they come over here, they give me a nice bottle of wine, sometimes expensive, and I don't care about it. Like, I have tons of these at home. Like, I'm always at some point I actually literally threw good wine away, because it was like I have like 40 bottles that I don't care. It's taking up space. And I tried to give them back to people, and people felt offended. It's like, yeah, but I'm treating you like the way I wanted to be treated. Yeah, but you're not treating me the way I want to be treated.
That's it. That's it. That's the platinum rule. Treat, like, know what I want. Take the time to get to know me, and then you'll realize. Don't bring over a bottle of wine. What is it that you like to drink? Do you like any fancy waters, like the sparkling waters?
Yeah, so I'm actually drinking much more just normal water these days.
Okay.
My kids call me boring in that way. So, but it could be any kind. I would actually am one of the men that like to receive flowers, for example. Yeah.
Ooh.
So that is also something that you could bring. But typically, when they will bring flowers, or in this case, my partner likes plants, so many people will bring plants for her, and then bring bottle for me. And I'm like, yeah, it's like I actually might. I'm not sure if it's really that I like more flowers than my partner, but I
Yeah.
did think that at some point. So that's like, okay, we could roll reverse it, and that's a little bit the kind of things, and that's
Yeah.
indeed. I hadn't heard about the gold and the platinum rule, but
Yeah. So the
it's really
golden
that.
is really self-centered. The platinum is exactly what you
Mm,
said. Um, treat others the way that they want to be treated. It's a very empathetic and compassionate way of being, right? Because that's what we want for ourselves. You want
exactly.
flowers, not bottles of wine. So when we meet up, you know what I'm going to be bringing you.
Well, but that's indeed that, and I've remember talking with people saying, yeah, but I don't like to ask for, and it's like I've coached some people, not in I didn't coach or didn't do therapy with couples, but I do remember at some point having a coaching conversation where somebody brought that up, like, okay, I try to give things to my partner or my friends or whatever, or even to teammates. So, okay, well,
Hmm.
you could just also ask what they like to receive. Yeah, but that's unpolite. No, actually, you might give them more what they want, and it might be an awkward conversation the first time, but at least you know it. And if you remember it, it might.
Yeah.
Or maybe you say, well, do you still like flowers? Because I saw this kind of flowers, or what kind, and that I would
Yeah.
feel seen, and other people would feel like, hey, do you care about what I want, and not
Yes.
about something what you want. It tells me something, because I know that if people come here and they bring me expensive wine, I know if I go to theirs, I probably wine is something they like and they expect. Except I shouldn't
Correct.
bring them the same wine that they gave me, because they'll probably figure it out and feel disrespected. Although they probably think this is the best gift there is, as a thing
You
that
know,
that
it's all
exactly
about
thing.
asking, right? It's
Exactly.
it.
So
I
really
think I
right.
think I think that I truly uh, I truly believe in deeply believe in the the narrative that we've been hearing a lot of over the past few years about consent when it comes to intimacy. I think that it doesn't stop there, and it needs to, because we need to practice in other parts of our life, right? And consent to bring
Mm,
you a bottle of wine is a fantastic um, friendship opener to other things of consent. Do you like going to the opera, right? Or it's like these are the things we need to learn about each other so that we are serving each other, not just serving ourselves for each other, right? And I think that it needs like the consent, the shared wants and needs, from teammates to partnerships, really helps create bridges, right? Creates like connections that you couldn't have if you didn't ask.
Exactly. I really like that. It's yeah, I really like the whole story, and I'm like I said, I'm then tempted to bring my part of it, but it's so much that connection, and it's about caring and these kind of things. Let's
Yeah.
move to that next question, because I think it's also kind of related. What do you consider your biggest achievement, and what when we talk about drive? So, and of
Yeah.
course, it's the biggest achievement so far.
Mm.
That well, and I want you to go to the question below, because this is your opportunity to brag. Is it easy for you, Shelton, to
Mhm.
brag?
You want me to do the achievement or the brag?
The brag
Uh,
achievement,
okay.
and that's another thing, but just that part. So
It's
the
it's not easy for me to brag. No.
mm,
I grew up in a family that was pretty humble and quiet and helping support others. And I think that comes naturally to me. So the bragging, I don't. Um, I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at sharing my story, um, because I like you did me a very gracious thing at the beginning, is you allowed me to share who I am. And over the years, when other people had shared who I am, they would miss things, or they would, and in best intentions, but giving me the platform to kind of share who I am is if you it's a minor brag, but it's a very nice way of sharing my own story. Um, yeah, so I'm getting better over time. I'm aging into it.
you're like good wine, you're aging and become better over time. So
I was gonna say I'm aging like good water, but like that doesn't work. I think water just kind of gets stale, doesn't it?
that depends. But even wine at some point becomes really bad and becomes so.
It
It
becomes
depends on
vinegar,
how old. Exactly. Well, if you like vinegar over wine, like in a
right?
way, good vinegar
Right.
might be adding something really good taste to food as well. So in
Am I
that
putting this
sense,
on my salad, or am I putting this in a wine glass? Yeah.
exactly. So it's a little bit, but yeah, it's. But I indeed, it's a part of why I'm asking, because what I've noticed is like you were invited here because someone really thought, like, hey, this is a cool person to talk to, and has achieved so many things, and or money kind of things, and then people sometimes realize, hey, it's not because I think that way that for that person, in this case you, it's easy to be standing there and saying, hey, this is what I've achieved, and that I'm really proud of. So that is, I
Yeah.
think, is and I think it's I'm asking this I started asking this sub question to, I think at first, to some of the people that I admired very high, like
Hmm.
for a hinge, and then I heard some people really that I thought you achieved, I don't know, Valhalla, but something that I think is like incredibly, and then people say, yeah, but yeah, I don't like to
Yeah.
talk about it, because and so I recognize some of that in you as well.
Yeah.
Um, and but like you say, and I think that's indeed an advantage of becoming older. Like, hey, wait a minute. Because that the question you ask is that the achievement itself is sometimes hard, and I think when it's hard, then it's also good that people realize, hey, I can be proud of some of
Yeah.
that part.
Yeah.
So,
So
what part is there that you want to brag, or that you
yeah,
think is your biggest achievement?
it's a hard one because in my mind, I try and I'm trying to define what achievement means to me and what achievement means to others, right? If you asked my wife, who is a financial planner, achievement is has a monetary value to it. If you ask my son what achievement is, it would be, a fun value. Did you have a lot of fun doing it? Um, I think and this is going to sound really like I'm going to try not to qualify it too much, but um, I struggle. The thing that I think that I'm most proud of when it comes to achievements are moments when I'm actually not working for someone else or not providing for someone else or trying to create someone else's experience, but like realizing what I need, and then pouring into that. And I this is not a work achievement. This is really just a personal achievement. But a few years ago, I took a 10-day trip um, to Marrakesh in Morocco and did a 7-day run, not a completely across, but a run in Morocco through the Sahara Desert, through towns, meeting people, with a group of other amazing individuals, and it was a slow run, but it was absolutely beautiful, and it was something that
So
I
7 days running, did I hear that correct? And is that, but I hear also talking, so it's like you did have enough time to talk
yeah,
with the people. So how does that,
you you
how does
you'd
that?
you'd wake up in the morning in some new town. We had 3 support vehicles, and I saved up my own money and I put it aside. This was pre-pandemic. Pandemic shut it down, but it came back. But it was you'd wake up in the morning, you'd have breakfast with other individuals from all across the world. You would talk
That
about
are on the
local
same run?
that are on the same run, and every
Mm.
morning we had a run that had been kind of put together by Allison, who's our tour guide, if you will, of Morocco.
Mm.
And we would finish breakfast, get our running gear on, put our packs on top of these vehicles, and then we would just like go run towards the sunrise and run for
Wow.
a few hours. We get about 10 miles in, and then we'd go slow. We'd bring our cameras, we would take pictures, we would talk with locals, we would play soccer with kids as we are running around. They would run with us, dogs would chase us. It snowed at one point in time in the middle of the desert. It was insane. People would need to borrow water from each other. We had to borrow snacks from each other. We would run to the car and get more water from them. It was just a beautiful thing, to experience. And those individuals that I ran that I ran with, I can honestly say they're probably lifelong friends, because over 10 days and a lot of funny stories and eating on the ground and dancing on top of sand dunes, it was a big accomplishment for me. I did it for me, because I rarely do stuff for myself. So it's a highlight of my personal life,
Mm.
that
And
I'm
what
glad I took.
inspired you to do this?
I'm a runner, and I'm not. I I like to joke that I'm allergic to cars, so I don't run on the road. I don't want to get
Which
hit.
is, yeah, which is well, in United States, I think it's kind of hard because there's like here in Belgium, it's like we all, on every road we can walk to the side parts. In
Yeah,
America, the times I've been there, it's like most roads is like cars, maybe bicycles, and that's it. Like pedestrians,
yeah,
like you're crazy
yeah.
if you want to
It's
walk or run. So
Yeah, and I love running. So I run trails a lot, and I like going slow, so I can stop and smell a flower or look at a large pasture overlooking a field. I'm here for the experience of running, this, and I wanted to explore somewhere else. And I've been very interested in exploring parts of Africa, and Northern Africa, and Morocco was the first place. And yeah, it just like the company was like heartfelt. You could tell it was run by good people. Um, Beautiful photography of these runs, and it just felt like that you were in full support of you going at any speed you wanted to go explore, and it's almost like a running meditation. It
when
was
when
it
you
was
say
incredible.
you wanted? Because you were in a pack of with a group of people. Does
Mhm.
that mean that people arrived at different paces at the in the evening at the place to be, or how should I see that?
Yeah. So
I'm trying
it
to
was
understand the practicality. Maybe I'm just trying to already
yeah,
see
yeah.
myself doing it, but I'm trying to understand this. Yeah.
So the nice thing is like that you had people that were marathoners, you had people that were Ironman runners, you had individuals that ran a 5K every year, right? Nothing big. The nice thing about having the support vehicles is if they're like, let me give you a ride, we're going to get you up to the front and then you can get back in with the pack. They try and keep people together as much as possible, but they also don't try and rush you. And so for 10 miles, we have from 8 a.m. till almost like 1 p.m. to finish it. And you could walk pretty far, and if you don't want to walk anymore, you jump in the car. And so they your deadline is, are you hungry? Do you want to eat lunch? And if you're a couple miles away from the lunch spot, they'll pick you up and take you there.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's no
That's,
pressure. It's not a fast thing. The last days,
that's the
my
thing I
legs were
was like.
so done.
Yeah, it's that's this is you started out with running a couple of days and was like, wow, this is insane. And it's like, how do you keep running? But now I understand it's
Yeah,
actually more the experience than the run. It you
yeah,
just happen to also move and like you say you were as a way of allergic to cars. There were still cars involved as a kind of backup plan or like kind of safety way,
exactly.
I would say. But it allows you to not care about what will I arrive or whatever, because they could bring you food, drink, or whatever.
Right, right.
um
It's
so it's
fully
a
supported.
different kind of thing, exactly, and it's a different kind of running. As okay, I'll just run for 5 kilometers or 5 miles or whatever, and it's like then you have to keep going, or people put pressure on themselves. You have to keep going because that's what it is, and this is
Yeah,
like a completely, yeah, like almost meditative way
yeah,
of by coincidence you're running, but that's almost like a sidetrack to that.
yeah. You're running and like, I'll share pictures with you later, but like you're just seeing these parts of the world that are functioning very well, that are absolutely beautiful, that and you're just running through communities of people that it's a different life. And I was very fortunate to be able to be part of that.
I really, yeah, it's a wonderful, inspiring story. For because there's a couple of people who talked about stories for running and discovering stories, but
Yeah,
that's a different kind of level, different kind of running. I hope that it inspires people. Like, okay, look around. What are options? Definitely will. If you share some of that, I will link in the show notes and have people
oh
talk
certainly.
about it. It's talking
I
about a very inspiring achievement, I would say. It's like totally different than what I've heard.
mm,
And then talking with the passion and then everything that you're talking here is like it makes it very, yeah, almost visible in a way that I can imagine. I wasn't there. I didn't even have any pictures, and at the same time, I can kind of imagine the movie of being there and what it is. And
yeah.
I definitely can feel the legs at the end of the couple of days. It's like, okay, because that must be, yeah, like wow, what a story. Thanks for sharing this.
You're welcome.
I want to move to, yeah,
Yeah,
go
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 for
ahead.
it.
Was there
I
something
was
you
going to
want to
say
add?
at the end of it, and talking about legs, and then we can move on. Is um, we got prizes at the end of it, and we went through these like markets and Casbahs, and our guide got us each a cup, like little like um, coffee mug, like a mug,
Hmm.
and mine had like water on it because wherever we ran, somehow, some way, I would find a stream from the mountaintop, and I would go stand in it to like chill off my legs because I knew that I was in pain or my ankles. And so Allison at the end of this whole experience, because she got to know us, she watched us, she heard us, she had stories exchanged with us. She gave me a mug and was like, "You're the one that will always find water to jump in." And it, I still have that cup downstairs. I love it, and it's a reminder of, it takes time to get to know people, right? And putting ourselves in these experiences that aren't fast, that might be a little laborious, might take some time and money. It's well worth it. One life, might as well enjoy it with other people that are enjoying it as well.
Mm. That's really nice closing. Because yeah, like you say, that person was there with you, had your stories, and was yeah, that's a different kind of thing than getting something from a person. Like, yeah, this is the story behind it, and I can imagine that if you look at that mug, you'd still think about these days, and it's like, hey, these people, and so that's
Yes.
this is yeah, like we talked about giving gifts, and for me the gift of an experience is like the most valuable gift you can give, much more than giving money or giving possessions or whatever. It's really the gift of experience, and in a way it's a possession, the mug, but it's the story behind the mug much more
Yes.
than the mug itself. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep, you got it. It is a reminder.
It's really nice as an ending of that story. So I wanted to go to that next question. Do you have personal agility tip to share?
Define agility for me.
Hmm. Well, I on purposely try not to talk too much about it and what it means,
Uh-huh.
because we talked about diversity before, and I've noticed that if I fill it in for people, they kind of move into the direction what I'm having, and
Okay.
so this is the kind, like, define it in any way you want. In what is the first thing that comes to mind, or the strongest, I don't know,
Yeah.
image that comes to you when you hear that question?
And the question is, remind me one more time, what is the big agility for me?
Hmm. The personal. So that was really about.
Yeah.
Is there something in your? But again, it's dangerous if I want to say some
No,
more.
no,
So
you're
that,
good. I got it. I got it. I think um, my personal agility, it stems from this 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 deep curiosity that I this little curious fire that I kind of always have, which allows me to not always have an open mind, but like be able to spark an open mind about people and situations. And it comes out in different ways. This like curiosity, this playfulness comes out in different ways. Sometimes I have to, do something with myself, in front of other people, to kind of be like, you know what, I'm going to be as open. I want people to be open with me. I want to be vulnerable. Um, an example of this is I've done this with, on team Zoom calls, and I've done this. We've got a small kickball league in my neighborhood. Um, I'll wear a costume. Like I like for my team meetings and even coaching sessions, like that I know that are going to be maybe decently serious. I'll put on like a robot hat, or I will try to I'll try to lower the expectations of the situation so that people can show up. I try to
mm,
create curiosity somehow, like why are you wearing that hat, or not just like, I'm putting like I'm wearing like is it blinking, what are those things, suspenders on a call. um, I think I try to always spur curiosity. I try to, within myself and within others, so that we can enjoy more of what we're doing. um, I wear, every time I go to this kickball league that I mentioned, I wear a pink tutu, so that people take this adult game less seriously and enjoy it. And I'm willing to, and maybe that's another agility, I'm willing to put myself into the silly position or into the curious position in order to help the group thrive, wake up, share, be present.
I really like that. This and you said be present, and you, in the beginning of the conversation or some time ago, you talked about I'm not going to be the one with the shiny everything, but now you're talking about a different kind of shiny things,
Yeah.
um, and it's not to show off like, hey, I'm the big guy, but it's really like, how could I spark something? And does it ever happen that people, when you first do that with new teams, new people that you
Yeah.
meet, that people are like, they don't know what's happening and they don't ask
Oh.
about it? Is that
Oh
ever?
yeah. I yes, that always happens every single time.
Mm,
I think that those, like, that's the first impression, right? There are people like, what is this guy doing? Why is he doing this?
mm,
But as they kind of understand my message and what I'm trying to hold space for, I'm holding space for them, to not take themselves so seriously. They start realizing, oh, he's not showing off. He's not trying to be looked at. He's actually trying to break down whatever social constructs that we might have that make hierarchy within our community or within our group or team. He's trying to break that down in a way that allows other people to be vulnerable, right? Because if people are able to laugh at me, even if I'm the leader or if I'm not, it makes it so that other people can show themselves, right? And I think it all
mm.
stems back to
But
curiosity. Like
that's interesting
yeah,
because you in a way these colored suspenders or other kind of gimmicks
yeah.
is not you or is a different part of you. So how did you
Ooh,
translate
ooh.
that to being more of themselves? Well, actually, kind of, I don't know, there is, or is the gimmick also part of you, or did
I think the
I
gimmick
read
is
something?
part of me. I think the gimmick is
Mm,
part of me because I do enjoy um, the silliness that of either dressing up or of telling jokes or of life. Like I think that is definitely part of me. But it's not a part that I wear every day, right? Um, I guess it's the multifaceted um, personality that I'm unwilling to hide, right? And I
mm,
think that's really the reality of it. It's like, yes, the colorful suspended person is me. Yes, the tutu running around the bases playing kickball is me. But that's not me in total, right? That is a part of a complex person, and that part is one that's asking you to let loose, and not feel like you have to show off for me.
mm. And do people ever feel offended in a way that's like, come on, I'm a serious person. Why do we even do that kind of thing? Is that ever happening or?
Yeah,
Uh,
well, in my area of the United States, I'm in the South, and so you have a lot of conservative um, feelings and narratives about individuals that are different, right? And so if I, you know, if I show too much difference outside of the norm, people will make say things behind my back that you eventually get to me, or they'll say things to my face that are hurtful. But a majority of people, they get it. They get it that I'm not trying to indoctrinate anyone or change anyone. I am here to hopefully make situations a little bit less stressful. With the same knowledge that, the next day I could be in a suit and I could be telling everyone what to do, right? It's the same person,
Mm.
um, but it's one that you realize that the seriousness that I might bring at one point, is tempered by the silliness that I that I possess as well, right? I'm not a one-dimensional person. I don't think anyone is. I think that's the big break. Is like, if I can show multiple dimensions to other people, then they can feel alive enough to be able to show multiple dimensions to me.
That's yeah. It's it again went in multiple kind of directions, but I felt always deeper in these kind of things because it shows
Oh,
indeed
yeah.
the different kind of ways of showing up, vulnerable, silly, seriously, and like what you didn't say it, but at the same time you did say it. It's all part of you. You're not just one personality. You're multiple parts of it. Like I think all of us, and sometimes at work we only want to see one thing,
Mhm.
and sometimes that's good, but sometimes it's actually holding back other parts, which actually makes people understanding us a lot less. So there's definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
I really value that as a thing, and this is for me a nice example of why I don't want to explain too much this question because I would have never thought we would go in this kind of direction. So
I
I
totally get
really
it.
like that. So that's so nice. I want to move to a question that we kind of briefly already talked a little bit about the remote working. Um, and so typically the question that I ask around it is that many people started doing much of remote working during COVID, the whole pandemic. Did you already do some remote work before?
Yes. I've been remote working in some capacity since about 2015. So well before Zoom was this good, or like the video
Yes.
technology was this good. Um, so I've seen a lot. What have I learned about remote working? Um, Gosh, like the pandemic's changed a whole lot. Um, I love remote working. I get a lot done.
Mm.
I've learned that uh, I have to make a much stronger intentional push towards community here in this digital setting than I ever had to live with people. Um, and I think uh, that's the big hurdle for me still, because there'll be days when I'm just like deep in, like kind of making sure that I'm getting my work done, and then I'll come up for air and be like, oh, I haven't talked with this community over here or that community over there for a day or a week, when that was completely different when I was live in an office where you saw people every day. So I think the big learning is more intentional towards community engagement, um, and and with the realization that hi- I, I think that hybrid models, like a good hybrid model of working, is smart, so that people can get together. Because I think that at the end of the day, we're all human, we're flesh and blood humans. Like you, I'm wearing red pants right now, and I'm not wearing any shoes, and that's context that we could weirdly be sharing, but unfortunately, we're not here face to face. So giving organizations and teams the ability to be more present with each other, I think is a very important thing to remote work that somehow we need to figure out. I know some companies have.
That's yeah. Uh, that's indeed a little bit the thing for remote work. And yeah, it sometimes can get very emotional, the people in favor or in disfavor of remote work.
Hmm.
um I think also reality is it's here to stay. It
Oh,
might change a little bit, and the
yeah.
tools have luckily improved a lot since. Yeah, my first remote working teams was like in 2005
Oh, wow.
with
Yeah.
Skype being
Oh, that's
available
right.
for half a year or something like that. And that, yeah, that already I could see value. And yes, today things are way better. The It's possible with a lot more connections. Bandwidth, internet bandwidth, this is also a lot better.
Yes.
It's so that a lot of that has been changing. A lot of that has been going on. Um, and it will change, and there is value in seeing each other and doing things. And like we
Yeah.
said in the beginning, it allows different people, like I couldn't see you using the cards and things like that actually allows you to be much more attentive to some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And again, like you say, I have literally no idea how big you are, because on the screen you look a little bit bigger than me, but that could be just be the camera zoom and whatever. And the
Right.
first time I will meet people that I've only met in sometimes it's like, hey, you're actually the same size. Actually, are people full people? Are people? You talked about your trousers. I don't even know if people have if you wear pants, or if you have legs or not, because that's
Right.
all some things that we don't know. And I bring the legs on because Zoom or remote work also allows, again, other kind of diversity. People who's
Right.
sitting in a wheelchair and who can't come to work can all of a sudden be really part of it. And we might know, or we might not even know, because that's
Yeah.
the box I see.
This box is our reality, you know?
Exactly. And that brings so much in that. So thanks for bringing that up. It's
Yeah.
yeah, there is a lot there about the care of remote work, and yeah. So yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
bringing that part of up. Let's move to that next question. And this is you shared
Whew.
already before with the book. What's a book that you have read or want to talk
Recently
about?
read this book. I think I even have like, come on, take leave that in there. Um, this
Please.
camera. There we go. These
Mm-hmm.
Truths by Jill Lepore, and in the middle it says a history of the United States. Um, this took me, I want to say, a year to read because it's one of
It's a
those
rather
books.
thick book, like
It's
wow.
it's a thick one. It's one of those books that you read, you think about it, you realize you never knew it, and you get mad that the U.S. education system failed to teach you that in history class.
Mm,
And so it's one of these books that I'm trying to put in everyone's like perspective in their hands especially those that live and work in the United States. Like you need to like part of empathy is knowing a past, right? Part of empathy is knowing yourself. Part of empathy is kind of understanding the future. And if we don't have information, the decisions we might be making might be just creating the same problems that we already have. Um, or the systems that we have are created by ignoring the history that we've gone through. And so this book is one of those, like I said earlier, I try to put in everyone's hands, and like it's gonna, when my kids get a little bit older and can take on something like this, I'm gonna want them to read it. We'll read it together because it's on what's the un, unfiltered reality of what happened in the United States in its inception all the way up until the election of Donald Trump. So it just get full breadth from the author, what's her name, Jill Lepore, who is a fantastic author, to be able to put something like this together. So yeah, this is the book.
It's
It's a
yeah,
gritty one.
but it's interesting what I've learned. I don't know if it's the last years, but I probably wasn't the most interested student into history, and when I was in school, I've learned it
Mhm.
later. But at some point, I did have some teachers who were really good storytelling. Again, talking about stuff. But I realized, like a couple of years ago, like we only know part of it. I've heard other stories, people talking about World War I and II from the
Yeah.
United States, from Africa, from different kind of countries, how they look at that, and that's a different kind of story than the Belgian one.
Yeah.
And so that is part of it. And then you realize that, wait a minute, I did know about how America was formed because that was part of our history, but I didn't know all the gory details in the same way that we learned it about the Belgium or the European history. And then when
Yeah.
I learn indeed, like in the United States, that there is a lot of things going on about removing books and removing things because, like, yeah, this is not America. Well, no, it's part of your history. You might be um, not like it, or you might you
Right.
feel like. And so history is also politics in so many ways. It's and what the story is always told by the survivors. That's something I've learned in school, so
Right.
I'm happy about that.
Right.
But there is a lot of other stuff, and even this, like, okay, how America was created with the whole war, and there's actually a lot of movies about that, so in that sense I learned some stuff. But there is
Yeah.
also, like you say, in books like this, and I haven't read that one. I've heard about some similar kind of books,
Hmm.
but it's like there is so much hidden about history that people didn't learn about the rest of the world, about their own country. It's like amazing how yeah, how some of
Yeah.
that happens.
They haven't learned, or they purposefully have not been taught. And that's the
Oh
thing that
yeah,
scares me the most. It's like, we're not going to teach you this stuff because it's detrimental to our current political system or the way that our systems are made right now. And we're going to actually take books off the shelf so you can't ever understand them. Right.
because it's dangerous if we teach people to whatever kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that is the book. That is,
And
I
so
will be.
what triggered you to read this? How did you learn about the book? If
Mm.
there's anything.
I think it started off as a challenge. I saw it at, I don't know how we came upon this book. Someone might have given it to us, or my wife started reading it. She's like, "It's too much. I can't do it." And so I picked it up, and I'm fascinated by historic reflection. I'm fascinated by um, behavioral economics. How culture shapes um, older cultures shape where we are today. Technology. There was a really good book that I read when I was many years ago. It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel. Jared Diamond, and it was one of these books that really like opened my eyes to, like things like why. I think it was I'm gonna get this wrong, and one of your viewers is gonna point it out to me. I think it was Japan that had gunpowder first. Maybe it was China. I don't know, but gunpowder originated in Asia, in that part of East
Yeah,
Asia.
at school I always learned that it's China, but I might be wrong. But that's
Well, let's go with
because
China.
that's where also the fireworks came from and stuff like that. So that's
Right.
what I've learned at some point.
And so they had firearms first as well. But there was a point in time when they realized the firearms were going to topple the political system, so they got rid of them.
Mm.
And then they came back up in parts of Europe through trade. And so there was like just this fascinating things about how the world has been created, what things stopped, what things continue to flow on, how disease has changed things. I'm fascinated by that type of stuff. I didn't know I was a history nerd until I was probably 35.
Yeah, well, the older we get, the more we have our own history, and we realize,
Right.
hey, there's other parts of the history of. I think, indeed, when one of my grandparents died, I saw also my father being interested in learning about his own history and in the family, and making some kind of, yeah, book
Hmm.
about it, based on lots of documentation that he received from actually
Wow.
brothers that died. And that made me indeed realize that, hey, there is always a part of it, of history. And sometimes we talked earlier about VCRs and other things, but like,
Hmm.
okay, growing up in that kind of life, what does it mean? There were no phones, no, I don't know, not even television. So, and
Right.
so a lot of that, what does that mean? And it's, yeah, it's been fascinating indeed for me as well. I can definitely see that is, that at some point, and I see my children at a young age already being much more interested in history. I can only be happy about that.
That's
um
great.
but it's it's something that I probably, both of us, we needed to learn at some point. I have no idea if that was in that age or whatever, or if something has changed in school or in other things, but yeah. So, but thanks for sharing. It's, like you
Yes.
say, it's a challenging book, and it might be very challenging for some people to learn because of
Yep.
the hidden, well, the fact that a lot of things were hidden, and like we were not supposed to know.
Right.
But I think that's exactly why they should be read and then learned. That we learn a lot
Definitely.
more about that,
Yeah.
and especially in these days and ages where lots of messages are spun, and yeah, like you talked
Yeah.
about, a president that likes to lie, to repeat the lies, to get some kind of idea, and after a
Yeah.
while people start believing it in a way without even realizing that a lot of that is spun with,
Yeah.
I don't know where some of these things are coming from.
Yeah.
And
I,
independent if we like the person you're not, lies don't help us to know reality. That's
yeah.
a little bit a sad thing.
I think we're both. This is a yes, and I think we're both in the appreciation of what data is, right, and how it
Mm,
moves. And I think you and I would never ship a product that had spyware, bad code, and an unusually uncomfortable experience, right? We wouldn't do that. That would negate our profession. Um, and history,
I literally had so I made a very small Android app with my then 12-year-old son, because it was just as
yeah,
an experience. And we talked also about it. It's like, no, we decided, both of us together, let's not put ads in it. It could bring some money. But again, this was not about making money or anything. It was about learning.
yeah,
And it was a conscious decision, let's say. And I do see some value in ads, but there's like, hey, this is an experience just for the two of us. And it's nice if we can find a couple of hundred people using the app,
yeah,
but let's not add, because it brings a whole different kind of thing to it. And that's it, and that's not even at the level, like you say, spyware or other kind of things, which is
but it's a
even
decision.
more disastrous. But exactly, it's a decision, it's a conscious thing. Let's decide at what
Yeah,
level. And of course, I think especially a 12-year-old, he definitely wants to make money, and all these kind of things, because that's and I think everybody wants at some more a more comfortable life. But
yes. At
that
what expense?
and exactly at what expense? That's the word I was looking for. Thanks. That's the
Yeah,
thing. Especially, so this is just ads, which is where some people might think it's still okay, but spyware, that's like, I think a lot more people would say, let's not do that. We're living in a world where there is a war. I'm actually working with people that are living in Ukraine, so there is a
hmm,
war going on. I hear a lot of these stories about how they got attacked, and both physically but also in the virtual world with spyware,
Wow.
with other kind of
Okay.
things, people trying to hack into their phones, computers, whatever kind of thing, because they want to spin. I just heard stories about how people got brainwashed in all kinds of ways, and it's like, okay, that's not the kind of world I want to participate in. It's
No.
actually a reason why I decided to join this company. It's like, hey, there's people working there in Ukraine, and it was not the only reason, but it's like this is part of why I want to help out with bringing that these people kind of better thing, because I do know that working in these circumstances while you're living in a world that basically physically not safe,
Yeah.
it's an important part. But anyway, I interrupted you. You wanted to add some more about that.
I don't. I thank you for sharing your story. I think that you, yeah, there's decisions we make, like you and your son made together. All right. It's data. We should be able to share it, and acknowledge it and know when it's fake or spyware, or like to your the stories you hear of the Ukrainian individuals, like it's undermining our commitment to each other purposefully.
Hmm. That's yeah. That's these kind of things, and that's indeed why talking about these books, talking about these things is what is interesting.
Hmm.
Um, I want to go to, for me, one of the interesting questions, most interesting questions, and after so long talking to you, I'm even more inspired to think about what direction could this go. So, what question did I not ask you, or do you think I should also ask you? And what's the answer?
Oh my goodness. I do ask this at the end of most of my user experience research interviews or ethnographic interviews. What am I missing? Oh gosh, what question? We've been in so many places. Um, oh wow. The one that just keeps coming back to me, and it's open ended again. It's and I feel like you've kind of asked it, but I like the so what. We've got all these concepts.
Mm,
We've got all the ways that I've been inspired in books that I read, and like it's like so what's next, right?
mm,
What is next that you want to do? Because I think we both understand where we're going, at this juncture in our lives, right? But I think that what next one is a hard one to answer, but a good one to think through.
right. Indeed, it's
Now I have to now I have to answer my own question.
that's indeed why what I wanted to say is like, yeah, we know it's a hard question, but and a hard way to answer, but do you indeed have an answer there, or how?
Yeah, I think the answer for me is really simple right now, because I feel like I'm. If you think of like an energy wave, you got like the troughs and the peaks, right? And I feel like I'm at a good plateau. Like yes, I wish my business was doing differently, doing better. Yeah, I wish I had more hair. Like that thing, it's not gonna. Some of that's
Full
gonna happen, some
circle
of it's
again.
not, right?
Hmm.
Um, what's next is like it's very simple for me right now. Is I hear my kids downstairs and I'm gonna go hug them. I'm gonna go start making dinner, right? Oh, and I've got an orange cat stepping on me, so everyone's telling me it's time. Um,
Hmm. We're
my
near
cat's
the
name
end
is
of the question, so yeah.
yeah. And so that's the immediate what's next. Like go re-engage with those that I love, and I think that is also the next for me as well when it comes to like career and post this conversation is is continue doing what I believe in. Um, and I don't necessarily like the word hustle all the time, but I think I just need to continue the let's make better communities hustle. And this conversation and your energy and your attention is wonderful and has really kind of like reinvigorated me, gives me energy to push through those narratives where empathy is not a good thing, or that all we want is fast food, right? uh, Push like that. That's my what's next is keep pushing.
Yeah, I like that, and I want to add this, and I don't want to make it longer because indeed we've been talking for a very long time. But it's like it's interesting when I've said this already before on the shows, like when I originally created these 10 questions like 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Well, there's two questions that were not in there, but most of these questions were in there, like this one as well. And in the begin, when the book version of this, many people went in all kinds of directions. And this time with the video series, I've noticed that almost everybody asks a little bit in the direction of what's next, and
Ah.
is this that, is that so. It feels like we're in a kind of global the community. Everybody thinks in a different kind of way, but very much in the same directions. Like where are we going? What's next for me? What's next for my
Yeah.
community? What's and so I feel so much that I think it's a general, and maybe it's because of the war, because of the pandemic, and lots of happened. The things is really like a lot of people are thinking much more, or at least that's how it feels to me. A lot of people think much more like, what's the next step? So
Hmm.
I wanted to share that with you because I think
Thank you.
it shows like many people have a similar kind of way of thinking and care about that. So that
Yeah.
shows for me again that although it's people with diversity and a lot of different kind of things, we have similar kind of worries or similar kind of questions there. So I
Yeah.
want to end up with that last question about who do you think I should also ask next?
Oh
And I
my.
think you had a few people that you were thinking about.
I, yeah, I gave you a few names there, and I have to come up. I have to say the one right now. Is that what you're?
No, no, you can bring all three of them up.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can I collected the pictures for these people, so I
Okay.
can also show you, and then you can talk something
Yeah.
about that. That
Certainly. So there's three individuals that I suggest, and they're close friends, differing backgrounds, much different stories, but all have like a touch in the technology that we are building, that we are using, that we are in, that we're promoting. Amy Small is one of them.
oops,
She
I
That's
trying to bring
okay.
her up. That's
Oh,
her.
there
That's
she is. Um, Good friend. We've kind of gotten close over the years. She has done some amazing things at her company and called Media Calls, and as just a working professional for wellness, mentorship, health of teams. She's very compassionate about like community. She really wants companies to really invest in their people. So and she works on the design side and branding for nonprofits. So she's got an amazing story. She used to own a bakery. She played goalie in a hockey goalie in college. I mean, she's got stories all over the place. Um,
mm,
Other one is Benjamin Charity, good friend. I've known him for many years. Technologist. Uh, it's 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 he's more than a front end developer. He's a developer of all things. He's a
and
whisperer
let
of
me.
code.
I think that's at
That's
least
Ben.
one of these
Yeah.
people is Benjamin.
Yep. Yep. He's there on the right there with the sunglasses on. I guess they both have. Anna has sunglasses on too. Anyways,
Mm,
really great guy. We've collaborated, coordinated, worked together, had beers together over the years. Just a really good, insightful person on where technology is, where it should go, where startups are. So just he's always a pleasure to talk with, and I'm proud to say he's definitely one of my good friends. They all are. The last individual, David Walker, he's a new friend,
And
but
that should be David,
that's
if I'm
that's
correct.
David Walker. Man, what a he like call him King David for a reason. He's got
Mm.
energy, sunlight, power, opinions, and deep hope for humanity. He really focuses a lot of his time and work and effort towards the Black community. He's out of Oakland, California, and he's just doing great work. And it's not easy. It's not easy work, but it's great work. With his, he's co-founded a place called Blackfulness. And it's an app to help with wellness and well-being for African Americans. Yeah. So three
Thanks,
individuals, incredible
thanks
people.
for sharing
Yeah.
three with the backstory about bringing these
Yeah.
people. I know how hard it is to select one person, so that's why I allow indeed to bring again some extra kind of
Yeah.
people. I will when this video is posted, I will invite them,
Okay.
and then we'll see where things are going. Depending on, yeah, I might even sometimes I invite people quicker before this video is shown, because I want to, yeah, I do publish every week, so I want to be sure that I can keep publishing every week.
Yeah.
So I need to be sure that we're ready at that level. So Shelton, it's been a wonderful and a very long conversation. If people want to contact you, what's the best way to find you and to talk more about
Certainly.
you?
My website is empathylab.io.
Mhm.
And if you contact me directly, it's Shelton at empathylab.io. I will answer those emails, or send me was it a carrier pigeon with a note on its leg?
That's
Maybe not from Belgium. It might not make it.
yeah, that might be a different kind of thing. And so yeah, that's I think also this is also your website. Am I correct?
Yes, that is my
Yeah,
personal website. You're more than welcome to contact me through there as well.
because the empathy website I didn't prepare, so sorry about
No,
that.
it's okay. No,
But this is a way where people can find you, and
perfect.
for some
Yes.
people that prefer to have some social media things, the LinkedIn, I also think might be
Yeah.
interesting for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really want to thank you for your time. It's incredible to have spent such a long time with such wonderful stories. It's amazing the energy you still have to talk basically about yourself for a long time. For somebody who is a story listener, you're also a really incredible storyteller.
Wow.
So thank you very much
The
for your time.
audience matters, and I really appreciate this conversation. I'm grateful to meet you. This will not be
Well,
our last conversation.
I hope so not. I hope so not. That's for me one of the reasons to doing that is indeed, and this is why I like when people invite other people. Sometimes people invite people that I do know. In your case, you invited a lot of other people that I didn't know, so that this just brings so much more joy. So I
Thank
think I hear your children in the background. So I'll let you go to them, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Eve, thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.